The vast emptiness of space stretched before Captain Jaewon Park like an endless black canvas, punctuated by distant starlight. The Incheon, humanity's most advanced battlecruiser, hummed with nervous energy as it approached the outer colony of New Horizon. Alarms blared suddenly. Red warning lights flashed across the ship's bridge, casting deep crimson shadows on the faces of the crew. Lieutenant Hana Kim's fingers flew across the communication panel, her breath catching in her throat. Multiple unknown vessels approaching, she reported, her voice steady despite the growing tension. The first alien ships appeared like nightmares materializing from the darkness. They were nothing like human designs, massive organic-looking vessels that seemed to pulse with an internal light. Their hull surfaces shifted and rippled, almost like living skin. Captain Park studied the tactical display. These weren't just ships. They were something entirely different. "Prepare defensive formations," he commanded, his voice calm and controlled. Within moments, the first energy weapons fired. Brilliant streams of blue-white light cut through the darkness, striking human colony stations with devastating precision. New Horizons' defensive platforms exploded in silent, spectacular bursts. Thousands of lives vanished in an instant. The Krell, as humanity would later name them, showed no mercy. Their attack was calculated, ruthless, and seemingly without emotion. Each strike was a surgical removal of human presence from this sector of space. Lieutenant Kim watched in horror as colony after colony disappeared from the tactical screens. Communication channels filled with desperate distress signals, then went silent one by one. "They're not even giving us a chance to surrender," she whispered. Captain Park's hands gripped the command chair. Everything they had trained for, everything they believed about humanity's potential in space was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to understand warfare on a level humans could not comprehend. The Incheon itself was now under direct attack. Energy weapons hammered against its shields, each impact sending tremors through the ship's structure. Emergency systems kicked in, routing power, sealing compromised sections. Evasive maneuvers. Park shouted. The massive battlecruiser twisted and rolled, trying to avoid the alien onslaught. But for every movement they made, the Krell seemed to anticipate their next action. It was like fighting an opponent who could read their thoughts. Crew members worked frantically. Some prayed. Others maintained a professional calm that masked their inner terror. They all understood the same brutal truth. Humanity was losing this war before it had truly begun. Lieutenant Kim's console suddenly went dark. Then another. Then another. Critical systems were being systematically disabled by weapons that seemed to understand the ship's most intimate technological vulnerabilities. "Captain," she said, her voice suddenly very quiet. "We're losing everything." Park looked at her, then back at the expanding darkness outside. Entire human settlements were being erased from existence. Colonies that had taken decades to establish were disappearing in minutes. The Krell weren't just attacking. They were systematically removing humanity from space like an unwanted infection. As the Incheon systems began to fail, Captain Jaewon Park made a decision. They might be losing this battle, but the war was far from over. "Prepare emergency transmission," he ordered. "We're going to tell Earth everything we've learned." Outside, more alien ships continued their relentless advance, silent and deadly against the backdrop of distant stars. Humanity's first true encounter with an alien civilization was turning into a nightmare of unprecedented scale. And this was just the beginning. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. Space continued its indifferent, eternal watch. Deep beneath, the Gobi Desert, a hidden research facility hummed with quiet intensity. Dr. Sung Ho Lee stood motionless, surrounded by screens displaying countless diagrams and complex calculations. Outside, the world believed humanity was on the brink of total destruction. Inside this underground complex, something extraordinary was taking shape. The Krell attack had changed everything. Traditional weapons had failed. Energy shields, advanced missiles, cutting-edge technology, all had proven useless against the alien invaders. But Lee saw something different. Where others saw defeat, he saw potential. His fingers traced an ancient sword design on a holographic display. Metallurgy, traditional craftsmanship. These were the keys nobody was considering. They think we're primitive, Lee muttered to himself. But primitive can be powerful. Research assistants worked around him, their movements precise and careful. They were creating something the military leadership had dismissed as impossible. A weapon that could defeat the most advanced technological systems known to humanity. Nano-enhanced blade technology wasn't just a concept anymore. It was becoming reality. Each prototype sword contained molecular structures that could adapt and resonate at frequencies capable of disrupting advanced alien technologies. The blades looked simple, almost too simple. But beneath their surface lay complexity that would challenge everything the Krell understood about warfare. Lee remembered the last transmission from the Inchin. Captain Park's message had been clear: humanity needed a miracle. And miracles, Lee believed, often came from the most unexpected places. The first successful prototype took shape slowly, forged from a special alloy that combined traditional metalworking techniques with quantum-level engineering. The blade seemed to hum with potential. When tested, it could slice through materials that would normally resist even the most advanced cutting technologies. "We're going back to basics," Lee explained to his team. "The Krell understand complex technology. They don't understand simplicity." Military observers were skeptical. How could a sword compete with energy weapons that could destroy entire ships? But Lee had data, calculations, proof that their approach could work. The sword's molecular structure could absorb and redirect energy. Its edge could vibrate at frequencies that would disrupt complex technological systems. It was a weapon that was both ancient and impossibly advanced. Outside the facility, the world continued to crumble. More human colonies fell. The Krell's advance seemed unstoppable. But inside this hidden laboratory, hope was being forged, literally and figuratively. Lee worked through nights, surviving on coffee and determination. His team rarely slept. Every minute counted. Every prototype brought them closer to a solution that could save humanity. The final design looked deceptively simple. A blade that could be carried by a single soldier. Lightweight, precise, deadly. But underneath its surface lay technologies that would revolutionize warfare. "We're not just creating a weapon," Lee told his lead engineer. "We're creating a statement, a way to show the Krell that humanity can adapt, that we can turn our perceived weaknesses into our greatest strengths." As the first batch of prototype blades was completed, a sense of quiet excitement filled the facility. They weren't just engineers or scientists anymore. They were humanity's last hope. The sword gleamed under the laboratory lights, a perfect blend of ancient craft and future technology. Simple, elegant, deadly. The Krell would never see it coming. Outside, stars continued to shine. Somewhere in the vast darkness, alien ships continued their relentless advance. But here, in this hidden facility, the first real weapon against the invasion was taking shape. Humanity was about to fight back. The first sword squadron assembled, in complete silence. Commander Dae-hyun Choi walked between rows of soldiers, each holding a blade that looked both ancient and impossibly modern. Titan's cold, distant landscape stretched around them, their first real battlefield against the Krell. Nobody expected them to survive. Conventional military wisdom said these soldiers were committing suicide. Swords against advanced alien technology? It seemed ridiculous. But Dr. Lee's research had proven something remarkable. These weren't ordinary blades. Each sword contained molecular networks that could disrupt complex technological systems. They could absorb energy, redirect signals, and slice through alien armor with precision no energy weapon could match. "We are humanity's last hope," Commander Choi told his squadron. His voice was calm, steady. "Our mission isn't just to fight. Our mission is to prove we can adapt." The first Krell ships appeared like dark shadows against Titan's methane-rich atmosphere, their weapons charged, preparing to eliminate what they saw as another insignificant human resistance group. They were wrong. As the alien ships descended, the sword squadron moved with unexpected grace. Where energy weapons would have failed, These warriors used something the Krell couldn't understand: pure human adaptability. The first blade strike happened so fast that Krell sensors couldn't even register it. A nano-enhanced sword sliced through an alien exoskeleton like it was paper. No energy signature, no warning, just pure, precise destruction. Commander Choi led from the front. His movements were calculated, almost dance-like. Each strike removed critical technological components from alien systems. The Krell's advanced weapons began failing one by one. Quantum resonance technology in the blades meant each weapon could adapt instantly. They read alien technological frequencies and disrupted them at a molecular level. What looked like a simple sword was actually a complex weapon system that could think and react faster than any computer. Krell commanders watched in total confusion. Their strategic algorithms collapsed. How could primitive bladed weapons defeat their most advanced technological systems? The battle on Titan became a turning point. Hundreds of alien ships fell, not through massive explosions but through precise calculated strikes that removed their ability to function. Each sword-wielding soldier became a technological assassin. "They think we're weak," Choi whispered into his communication channel. "We'll show them our strength comes from adaptation." Soldiers moved between alien ships like shadows. Their training combined ancient martial arts with quantum-level technological understanding. They weren't just fighting, they were rewriting the rules of warfare. By battle's end, the Sword Squadron had destroyed more alien vessels than entire conventional human fleets. Their casualties were minimal. The Krell losses were catastrophic. Military leaders watching the battle couldn't believe their eyes. Swords had just changed everything they understood about modern warfare. Dr. Lee, watching from the research facility, allowed himself a small smile. Humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to think differently, to adapt, to turn perceived weaknesses into unimaginable strengths. The Krell had believed they understood humanity. They were wrong. As Titan's distant sun set, casting long shadows across the battlefield, something fundamental had changed. The alien invaders would never look at humans the same way again. The Blade Revolution had begun. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the Krell leadership was about to receive a message they would never forget. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered. Humanity was a force that would always find a way to survive. The Krell leadership watched in total confusion. Their most advanced strategic systems had begun to fail, unable to process the human approach to warfare. Commander Dae-hyun Choi had become something more than a military leader. He was now a psychological nightmare for the alien civilization. Every battle followed the same impossible pattern. Human warriors would appear where they shouldn't be possible. They would strike, with precision that defied technological understanding, and then they would vanish, leaving only confusion behind. On the communication decks of Krell motherships, entire teams of alien strategists struggled to understand. How could a species use such primitive weapons with such devastating effectiveness? Their computational models broke down. Their predictive algorithms collapsed. Choi understood something fundamental about warfare that the Krell could not comprehend. War was never just about technology. It was about psychology, about breaking an enemy's will to fight. Each sword strike became a message. Each battle a psychological weapon more powerful than any energy cannon. The humans began targeting specific weak points in Krell systems. Not just physical locations, but psychological vulnerabilities. They would allow small victories, then suddenly turn battles completely around. They would retreat strategically, only to reappear in impossible locations, alien communication channels filled with growing panic. Something was happening that their entire civilization could not understand. Dr. Sung-Ho Lee watched from his research facility, understanding the deeper strategy. The swords were more than weapons. They were a statement, a way of showing that humanity could think beyond technological limitations. On remote colony worlds, human resistance groups began using the same tactics. A blade here, a precise strike there, always unexpected. always devastating. The Krell had believed humans were predictable. They were wrong. Commander Choi's tactics became legendary. He would strike critical infrastructure, then disappear before counterattacks could be organized. His squadron moved like ghosts, disrupting alien systems at their most fundamental levels. Entire Krell military academies began studying human tactics with growing fear. What they saw defied everything they understood about warfare. The humans were turning psychological manipulation into a weapon more powerful than any technology. Some Krell commanders began to believe the humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were something else entirely. A civilization that could turn weakness into strength with terrifying speed. The molecular blade technology developed by Dr. Lee became more than a weapon. It became a symbol of human adaptability. Each sword could read and disrupt alien technological systems in ways no conventional weapon could match. Battles became less about direct confrontation and more about psychological breakdown. The humans were fighting a war on levels the Krell couldn't even perceive. "We are not fighting their technology," Choi would tell his soldiers. "We are fighting their understanding of what's possible." Remote colonies became battlegrounds of impossible tactics. Human resistance groups would strike with such precision that Krell military leaders began to question their own strategic capabilities. The psychological warfare reached its peak when human squadrons began leaving deliberate messages, perfectly placed blade strikes that spelled out clear warnings. Not just attacks, but communications designed to break the alien civilization's will to continue fighting. Dr. Lee watched the evolving conflict with a sense of quiet satisfaction. Humanity had done something extraordinary. They had turned their perceived technological weakness into the most powerful weapon in the universe. The Krell were beginning to understand a fundamental truth. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not the most advanced technology, but the ability to think beyond technological limitations. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an alien civilization was learning a lesson it would never forget. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered. Humanity was a force of pure, unpredictable adaptation. The communication deck of the human flagship remained silent. Admiral Yoonji Park stood motionless, watching the incoming transmission from the Krell leadership. Years of conflict had led to this moment. Humanity had done the impossible. The vast holographic display showed representatives from the Krell Central Command. Their appearance had changed, no longer confident conquerors, but defeated beings struggling to understand how they had been beaten. "We surrender," the lead Krell representative stated. The words seemed to physically pain them. Dr. Sung-Ho Lee watched from the research facility, a quiet smile crossing his face. The molecular blade technology had become more than a weapon. It had become a statement about human potential. Commander Dae-hyun Choi stood beside Admiral Park. The man who had turned warfare into an art of psychological manipulation now looked almost tired. They had fought a war that would change galactic history forever. The surrender terms were simple. The Krell would withdraw from all human-occupied territories. They would provide advanced technological compensations. More importantly, they would acknowledge humanity's right to exist as a powerful galactic civilization. No one had expected this outcome. When the first alien ships had attacked years ago, humanity seemed doomed. Now they were dictating terms to an advanced alien civilization. "They never understood us," Choi whispered. "We're not just another species to be conquered." The holographic displays showed the scale of human victory. Entire star systems that had been lost were now being reclaimed. The Krell military might had been completely dismantled by a strategy they could not comprehend. Dr. Lee's blade technology had changed everything. What looked like a simple sword was actually a complex weapon system that could adapt faster than any alien computer. The Krell had believed technology was about complex systems. Humans had proven it was about adaptation. Admiral Park reviewed the surrender documents. Each line was a testament to human resilience. They had turned their greatest weakness into their most powerful strength. Communication channels across human colonies erupted in celebration. People who had believed they were facing extinction now understood they had done something extraordinary. They had saved their entire civilization. The Krell representatives looked defeated. Their entire military philosophy had been destroyed by a species they had initially considered primitive. Sword squadrons had defeated energy weapons. Human adaptability had overcome technological superiority. "We never saw you coming," the lead, Krell representative admitted. The words carried a mixture of respect and total confusion. Commander Choi stepped forward. His movements were calculated, precise, a living demonstration of the human ability to adapt and overcome. "Warfare is not about technology," he explained. "It's about understanding, about finding solutions where others see only problems." Historians would later call this the moment humanity truly became a galactic civilization. Not through massive technological leaps, but through the ability to think differently, to turn perceived weaknesses into unimaginable strengths. The surrender ceremony was simple, no massive celebrations, just a quiet acknowledgement of what humanity had achieved. Dr. Lee looked at the molecular blade that had started everything, a simple weapon that had changed the course of galactic history, proof that innovation could come from anywhere, that human potential knew no limits. Admiral Park signed the final surrender documents. Each stroke of the pen was a statement. Humanity would not be conquered. Humanity would not be controlled. Humanity would adapt. As communication channels closed and star systems began to resettle, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had won, not through superior technology, but through something far more powerful: human spirit.